Welcome to the special session on journal guidelines. This session is designed to try to clarify and answer questions that students may have concerning the journal. And this is the focus of what this session will be. You are to write the journal from two perspectives. You write it from if you are supervising someone, you write your journal from your perspective as a supervisor. If you are not currently supervising someone, then you write it from your perspective as a supervisee. What you do as a supervisor is identify what you have been doing on a weekly basis. As a supervisee, you are identifying what you have observed your supervisor doing with you primarily on a weekly basis. So you're not to follow your supervisor around. You're supposed to talk about what has been happening with your supervisor and what you've been doing with that individual through supervision. So depending upon whether you're a supervisor, whether you're not a supervisor, that's where you write your journal, okay, from that particular perspective. The journal should be structured or divided into 5 segments during each 4-cycle week. I would suggest strongly that you use the form when you document your observations, and as you begin to talk about your observations, you apply course readings and discussions during a specified time frame during that particular week. So as we're talking about the administrative functions of supervision, or when we get into the educational functions, you will talk about what is happening and what are you experiencing from either class discussions and a combination of class discussions and the readings regarding what your supervisor is doing with you in terms of planning. What are the goals and objectives that are being discussed? Organizing. How is the plan being implemented in terms of the organizational functions of the job design? Staffing, are you, as your supervisor, talking about interviewing, placing, training, recruitment, in that particular process? And 4, what is happening in terms of supervision or directing? And then 5, how is your supervisor evaluating you or providing you constructive feedback regarding what you're doing? So, in a nutshell, what's happening is as you're describing your observations and you're applying the course readings and the discussions, some discussion will focus on planning, some on organizing, some on staffing, some directing, and some controlling, and you have these different particular definitions. Remember, we talked about showman and some universal functions that supervisors do, and these are some combinations of some universal functions that your supervisor will be doing with you, or what you do as a supervisor when you're supervising individuals, and you integrate your thoughts and the readings in this particular process. So each segment is done on the form from several theoretical perspectives. You should use your text or reference your text using APA style, Kadushin and Harkness, 2002, Shulman, 2002, page whatever, and any other kind of writing in the narrative of your journal. Okay, it is suggested that you either write it either from the first or the third person, whatever style fits you best, but be consistent. Note-taking techniques. Well, in doing your journal, you may use a spiral pad. You may take notes as you're going through supervision or as you're supervising someone, and then as you begin to type what has been going on during that week or what happened during that time frame, do some reflections on your readings. Okay. Then you may do some cut and paste. I would suggest you probably write what's going on first and then go back and integrate the readings in your writing. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. The journal is due every 4 weeks unless we change and give you an extension. I'll give you some kind of feedback regarding your journal, some preliminary grade, which may be only in the form of feedback, or maybe you're doing B work or B plus work or something like that, just to make sure that you're on track. Your final grade will be given to you at the end of the semester as I read those particular journals. Okay. Generally speaking, I give feedback such as, continue to do what you're doing, or you need to talk more about this in this area, or you're not integrating enough theory, or you need to be more specific about what you're doing. You're talking about a lot about theory, but you're not explaining what's going on. You're just giving me a review lit. Okay, that kind of a thing. Again, your final grade for this course, as for the journal, will be based on your application of theoretical constructs within the journal, how well organized your journal is, clarity, good grammar, good English in your writing, and that's how I'll grade it. This is 40% of your grade, so it's very important that you do a detailed journal and that you cover all areas in terms of what's been going on. Now, in some situations, you may do some reflection in that your supervisor didn't talk about this, but this is what would have happened in the past, okay, and other supervision. Examples of writing this, I would like you to use the form, and where you would write your planning. For example, I participated in the unit meeting on Wednesday, January such and such, and my supervisor discussed departmental goals for the year. This seems to be consistent with Kadushin and Harkness's discussion on, or we have a staff person missing on FMLA, and we needed to talk about how to divide the work, for the unit. Or an example of organizing would be that your unit is expanding. You've been asked for input. What should we do? Or other things are happening in your unit in terms of heavy workload cases, reassignment of cases, that kind of thing. Staffing an example of staffing is that you went to a seminar, you have to fill a vacancy, you notice some job postings for new positions, some training that staff have gone to, on the job training that you might have received in supervision or talking with your supervisor. Supervision is pretty clear, I think, directing, and that is, I met with my supervisor, we discussed these particular cases. This is what Kadushin and Harkness said regarding this process, and this is how this relates to the readings. We talked about this in class in this sense. I don't want you to rely solely on class discussions. You do need to integrate the readings. I want to make that very, very important. And an example of controlling is that my supervisor gave me feedback on my work and evaluations, or we sat down and discussed our performance appraisal, or we began the performance appraisal process. So that would be an example of that. Hopefully, in closing, this presentation has helped you in terms of trying to clarify some points regarding the journal process in this reflective learning that I'm asking you to do. The more specifics, the more detail, the better the grade. The stronger the learning in terms of reinforcing that particular learning. Okay? So I strongly suggest that while you use the form, you may expand on this form and talk about more material and try to equalize those different 5 sections. If you have any further questions, please